Hi everyone, welcome back to our journey into the human experience. My name is Akshay Nanavati, and you are in the right place if you are looking to do grand, amazing, and beautiful things with your life. This is the place for you if you have seemingly impossible dreams that you don't know how you're going to manifest. Because the people we have on this show are people who are doing just that. They are embracing their fears of the unknown, pushing past their limits into the infinite possibilities that live out there in the scary and unforgiving unknown. And today our guest, Tyler Tervooren, he does just that. He is a professor of Riskology, and he runs this blog called advancedriskology.com. I'm going to let him tell you all about what Riskology means and what a professor of Riskology does. So you got to check out his blog. It's really amazing. If you can see right here on his tagline is better living through uncertainty. So clearly there's a lot of similarities between what we do, and that's why I immediately got along with him as soon as we met and connected through the blog, and now we met in person, and it was just my pleasure to have him on this show. So go on his site, read a little bit about his life. Here you can see click on About and then learn about his story. He grew up from a small town, and now he's from kind of a conventional life, how he managed to push out of that and get out of that and come and create new beliefs for his life. And now he runs something called the 1% Club, where he has a quest to be in the top 1% of the world. His vision is fantastic. He wants to climb the 7 summits in all 7 continents, run marathons in all 7 continents, among many, many, many other things. He will tell you a little bit more about it. Clearly, there's a lot of similarity. If you see my list of the things I want to do with my life, my path to immortality, you'll see that the 7 summits is on my list as well, and Tyler and me are hoping to do some of those together in the near future. So I can't wait to introduce you to him, and he's got amazing insights into fear and how to push through them, how to embrace it. It's just going to be a great interview. So I'm really looking forward to it, and without further ado, here is Tyler Tervooren. Welcome, Tyler. I was just telling my audience all about you, showing them your site, and the second I saw your site, it was actually a friend who introduced me to it. I knew that this guy's like a man after my own heart, like doing this similar things, and I absolutely love it. So, to start off, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you created and how you became a professor of Riskology? I love that. And how you created this site, Advanced Riskology.
Well, first of all, I became a professor of Riskology by accident on a joke. So, that was when I first launched the site. I was like, it'd be funny to put out my title as professor of Riskology. I have no degree. There's no such thing as a degree of Riskology. So just in case anybody's wondering, that's totally made up. All my credentials come from myself, and yeah, you should not trust anything I say. But Advanced Riskology started in June of 2010 after being laid off from my job, my corporate job, in February. So in January 1st of 2010, I made my very first New Year's resolution ever, and it was to quit my job by June because I had grown totally sick and tired of what I was doing. And then I got fired in February. So
oh, wow.
I kind of decided, all right, well, I was early, but that's what I wanted, so let's go with it. And I spent a month trying to figure out what to do next. And we get to the end of the month, and I'm just kind of noodling around, trying to decide what I wanted to do.
Yeah. That
was kind of the thing that had coalesced, was this blog about risk taking.
Oh, nice! I love that. That's really cool. And before, I want to get into a few things about that. But one thing I saw on your site that you said you grew up in a small town, and kind of with that traditional mentality, go to college, get a job, get married, that whole thing. So I'm curious about how, when you were coming from that place, and many of my audience wonders, it's almost like if you don't know what's out there, how do you even figure it out? How do you take that first step when you don't even know what's possible? So how did you go from that sort of pre-programmed way of, this is how life goes, to doing what you do now? How did you take that first leap?
All right. So first, I have to apologize. There was a big cut out there, so I think I missed the first half of the question. But it sounds like the question was how do you get from how do you make a big transition like that?
Yeah, from having even the belief implanted that it sounds like you grew up with the belief that you have to kind of move life a certain way. Am I cutting off?
Yeah, it was a really slow realization that I think I'm probably honestly still making. So my journey, I don't see myself as having like really conquered anything or like conquered a fear or something like that. Like I kind of see it as like advanced riskology is kind of like my place to talk about my own progression, right? And like hopefully leave some like wisdom along the way, like if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
But for me, like kind of in making the transition, it was all about kind of like very small, measured experiments, almost in a sort. Like so, I felt like for me, like one of the things that held me back the most, or one of the things that still consistently holds me back the most, is my worrying about like what other people are going to think of my successes or failures, or like the things that I choose to do with my life. And I've been slowly confronting that over time. And one thing I've kind of realized, and it's been really fantastic for me, is that when like what I've realized is that most people actually don't care what you do with your life, right? So like we all think that like everybody is like watching us and like waiting for us to like fail so they can pounce on us if we're afraid to do something. But in reality, like us thinking that is really just us thinking about ourselves, and which is exactly what everybody else is doing. Everyone is like so transfixed on what they've got going on in their own life. If you're not doing something that directly affects them, like most people just don't care. So like, so having that realization and like kind of seeing that like, oh, I can kind of do whatever I want because most people won't care. So why not just do whatever like I want to in order to be happy?
Yeah.
That was kind of like a big sort of stepping stone for me.
Got it. Yeah, and when that kind of came to you, that realization, you embarked upon this new journey, like starting a blog. How did you navigate your way through the unknown, if you will? Sort of manage the initial fears of like, how am I going to do all this? And in through each little small step you took, you said you took small risks. How did you navigate the fears of moving through those?
It's all about, for me, it was all about just breaking them down, like, right? So the idea of, when I think about what advanced riskology is and what it could be, right? Like, I have, a vision of what it could be someday that's, very, very big and like way out there and super scary.
Yeah.
And trying to just go after that is too much, right? So like I can't even think about it in that sense. So what I have to do is I have to break it down into much smaller pieces, right? I have to break it down into things that I can do like this year, and even this year is too big. Like this year is like a good sort of like milepost to shoot for, but then like I have to break it down. Like what can I do this month? What can I do today? Like what can I do in the next 10 minutes?
Yeah.
That's what it's been for me. Like honestly, is just as many times as possible throughout the day, like asking myself, what can I do in the next 10 minutes? Because the stuff that you can do in the next 10 minutes is not very scary. Right, like
Yeah.
it's this big nebulous thing that you don't know what to do is scary. Like once you know what to do, it's not scary anymore, or it's less scary. And once you do like a small piece of it, it becomes like much less scary. So it's just about taking tiny steps, like over and over and over again. Right? It's like marathon is 26.2 miles, but like it's like 50,000 steps. Right? Is how I like to think of it.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of kind of chunking it down and breaking it down into little tiny steps. That actually reminds me of some of the things I saw on your site. You mentioned like a few pretty amazing things, and like you bought the $15,000 of coins, and you played it, in front of a stage, a large audience. You traveled through Europe, staying on the floor, and each one of those descriptions, what I really loved is how you said that like you were you were terrified of doing it, you were sweating bullets. In different descriptions. So like when you were going in front of like a live audience and playing your music, how do you step into that? And like, because that's something, you can't break down. You're standing in front of an audience now. You just got to go for it, right? Like, how do you manage those kind of fears? I know like public speaking is one of the biggest ones, right? The biggest fear we all share, so.
Yeah. And that's honestly what it felt like. Yeah, it was. That was actually really hard. That was probably one of the hardest ones, and it's one that I don't know that I've ever actually written about or talked about. Maybe I should, because that was probably honestly like one of the scariest things I've ever done. But it all kind of, I don't know, like for me in that sense, like at that time of my life, like the music that I was making was like so important to me. Like I was scared to death, but I refused. I was just kind of had this attitude that. Like I refuse to let that fear like stop me from like trying to trying to spread the word about the music, basically, like trying to the fear of or the actually doing the act like was not. I'm trying to think of a famous like saying when the fear to act like was less than the fear of not doing anything. Basically, like that's a poor way to say it, but like
I got it, yeah.
I was less afraid to. I just got to a point where I was less afraid to just go and do it than I was to like sit and not do it anymore. So it was terrifying,
Yeah.
and I fumbled like all through it. But then like you get through your first one and it gets easier and easier, and I ended up doing it a number of times after that, right? And so like it's just kind of, and I think that's true for anybody like that has a passion about something, right? So like if you have this thing that you want to do, but you're too afraid to do it, like you don't actually want to do it that bad yet, right? Like because everyone will eventually like if you're truly passionate about something, you'll get to the point where you just have to do it, and you don't care anymore like if it's frightening or if things could go wrong, because like you literally are just, you have to act. Yeah. You have no other option. Otherwise, the only other option is failure, and you refuse to accept that.
Yeah. No, I love that. It sounds like you have like a really strong why. Like I love Tony Robbins once says that you got to turn your shoulds into musts, and it sounds like you must do it. Like there's no choice, and you have a strong purpose behind it. That's really cool. It really makes sense. So moving through these little steps one at a time. Now tell us a little bit about the 1% Club. I love that title too. Like tell me a little bit about that and how you started and came up with that.
Well, the 1% Club was just it was my way of trying to number one, like focus on doing more meaningful things in my life, and then number two, like kind of setting myself apart from the average Joe with a bucket list, because the 1% Club is essentially my bucket list, but it's also comprised of only things that I believe that less than 1% of the world will attempt.
Yeah.
So right now, and it started off as a big long list of things, and I've actually decided to cut the whole list out and only focus on like 2 pieces of it for now. So like now, instead of crossing stuff off, I'm adding stuff to it as I finish other things, and it's actually been very great because I focus more on like what I'm actually like, rather than like being distracted by other things I can potentially do. I've just got this one thing in front of me, and I'm going after it.
I like that. That makes sense.
So now, and this is something you and I have talked about offline personally as well, is mountain climbing. So I want to climb the 7 summits.
Yeah.
And that's a frightening goal for me right now. I've done 2 of them, and but each one is different. So. And I've done the 2 easiest ones, so now it's like a matter of getting my, getting to the point where I want to do it so bad that like I'm not afraid to just go for it anymore.
Yeah. No, I love that, and I'm curious about that. Like now you're pushing that line from, like you said, when you first started taking little steps, and now doing things like climbing the 7 summits, eventually Everest and Denali. Like monumental challenges. I've always been curious as a climber as well. Like where is that line to you? Like how far do you take the line before? I mean, you've seen some climbers, right, who take it too far, and the result. So how do you manage that line? Where?
Yeah. So like, oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No. Please, go ahead.
I was just thinking about this the other day, actually. So when I started. Advanced Riskology, my perception and my assessment of risk has changed over the 3 years or so that I've been writing in Advanced Riskology. So like I started out all gung ho. It's kind of like it was almost in a sense like I like to say I write what I need to hear the most.
Yeah.
So at that time, like I was all about like, just do it. Like, just do whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Just do something. Like, it doesn't matter if you fail. It doesn't matter, like, if things go wrong. Like, you won't regret doing it. That's very useful in certain circumstances. But there are also other events in life, other things you want to do, where that attitude is quite detrimental, actually. So, and climbing is one of them, right? Like, you don't just, I'm just going to go climb a mountain, right? Like, okay, well, you could also die. So one thing I've been thinking about recently is just getting better at at assessing risk, like more so than just accepting it, like getting better at truly assessing and understanding yourself. So, and it's different for every single person, right? So you have to start with like a really strong sense of who you are. You have to like really know what your values are, like what's important to you, because in order to say like, all right, I'm going to go do this thing, you have to also be able to say like, here are the primary things that can go wrong. Am I or am I not willing to accept those outcomes, right? So,
Yeah.
and if you're not, then you have to do something else to to mitigate that, right? So like, if I want to go climb Everest, like, am I a strong enough climber to climb Everest right now? For me, the answer is no, but I know I want to do it. So I'm not going to just abandon it, but I'm also going to say like, all right, what are the real barriers to me being able to do this, like without, putting myself in danger and putting other people in danger?
Yeah.
And the answer is like, well, I need to go climb some smaller mountains and get like, better technical skills. I need to get better at learning like rescue techniques and these kinds of things. So like, it's just getting better at understanding like who you are at the core, understanding who you are at your very core, and then being able to say like, all right, this is what could potentially go wrong, like based on who I know I am, like, is that acceptable or not? And if it is, then go for it. And if it's not, then like, don't give up, but like, it's time to, what you need to do now to change that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and like you said, you're kind of building your way up to those big obstacles. But now, do you ever think, because you keep working on those goals and keep pushing that line, soon you're going to be doing Everest and doing smaller peaks to get there. Do you ever think you really get over fear or you conquer it?
No. No, I don't. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, and really unhelpful misconceptions that people have about fear, in my mind, is that like it's something that you just conquer, like you just become not afraid anymore. The reason I think that is because we see people doing things that like look very scary to us, but they are not afraid of it. There are things that are also very scary to those people, right? That they see other people doing, right? It's kind of like when you if you want to be the best, and like it's a futile goal to be the best in the world or something, because there is always somebody better, and if there isn't, like they will come on very soon. And that's so. What I like to think of it as is just always expanding your circle, your comfort zone, right? So like if you don't take any risks, if you don't do things that are important and scary to you, then your comfort zone is very, very close to you, right here, right?
Yeah.
And once you take a risk, like maybe you take a little risk out here, and you take a small step, right? But like now that you've done that, there's like a million other things in your life that exist on that same level, and your comfort zone is out here now,
Yeah.
right? So like you're moving yourself out, and little bit by little bit, like all of a sudden, like now this out here is very normal to you, and or this out here is where like the line of scary stuff exists.
Yeah.
Like back in here is like everything back here is like, yeah, no big deal. I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
So it's a personal journey for each single person to like kind of make little strides to get more comfortable with that. Like always push that comfort zone.
Yeah.
If you see somebody doing something really scary, like, well, you can do it too. You just have to take a lot of steps to get there.
Yeah, yeah, got it. And funny you say that. Like I was working with somebody, as one of my clients who was like, he was very comfortable in his role. He was making 6-7 figures and just very comfortable, but wasn't happy, right? So what advice do you have for people to actually take that first step to build a circle, to kind of get a little bit outside,
Like, how do you get someone to take the little first?
To take that first step to start growing that circle when they're so immersed. Maybe they've been comfortable for 10 years, right? They're so used to comfort, and so finally when they say, okay, here's a first step. Like, what's the process for that, or what advice do you have for people who are going to be watching this?
Yeah, I think honestly, for me, a lot of the times the advice like to myself is like to get angry. Almost, right? Like get angry with my complacency. Like, it's cultivating a mindset, right? So like you have to cultivate for yourself the sense that like, maybe you're very comfortable, but you should not be happy about being comfortable, right? Like comfort is something like we all seek in one sense or another, but also like if you want to feel fulfilled in life, like you always have to be like there has to be something on the horizon for you, right? And so I think it goes back to you know, taking, like, we say a small step, like, well, if you can't take that first small step, then it's too big, right? So, like, literally, like, if the first step to starting your own business is quitting your job, well, you're not ready to quit your job, right? Like, that's still too scary. So, like, what do you need to do, like, for me, it's all about what can you do, like, in the next 30 seconds, right? Like, in 30 seconds, like, what tiny little thing can I do, like, it'll just get my head in the right space to think about this, you know, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that stops us is our own fears and insecurities.
Yeah.
So it's just focusing inward, like, at every possible moment, like, anytime I see myself, like, falling back into a routine that, like, I know I want to get away from, I have to, like, consciously go, like, oh, hey, Tyler, you're doing that same thing that you always do, like, but that doesn't make you happy, like, so this is going to be uncomfortable, but maybe, like, try something a little bit different right now. So I guess the advice I would say is if you're saying, like, if somebody's asking, like, I know this is my first step, but, like, it's too big, like, but I'm too afraid to do it, like, well, then, like, it's not the first step. That first step is still too big, and you can always break something down, like, infinitely until there's, you know, literally almost nothing left, and all you have to do is, it's a decision, right?
Yeah. No, I like that. That's invaluable advice. Now, the next big question, like, somebody's actually asked me this, you know, like, I had one of my subscribers on my newsletter. He asked me, you know, so how do I get into this? I have a full-time job. How do I climb mountains for a living? So how do you make a living doing doing the things that you do?
Good question. I'll tell you what, I do not make a living climbing mountains.
Yeah, I know, right?
In fact, I do quite the opposite. So I guess, yeah. So this is kind of this is a good question that speaks to a bit of misunderstanding about how business, you know, like smart businesses often work, right? So, like, sometimes people ask me, like, I love, like, and I'm gonna, like, make a caricature out of it a little bit, but, like, I love eating pizza and playing video games. Like, I want to start a business and make a living, like, eating pizza and playing video games. And my answer would be, you know, typically, like, that's great, and there are definitely ways to do that. But if it were me, like, I probably would focus less on what I want to do. So, like, if I want to eat pizza and play video games, I would focus less on trying to make a business around that, and focus more on making a business that solves somebody's problems that also involves doing that, right? So, like, rather than, like, trying to become a professional video game player, like, maybe write a manual on how to play a specific video game and sell it or something, right? So, like, you can work your hobbies into, like, you can work your passions and your hobbies into your business, but oftentimes, like, if you make the business literally, like, the thing you want to do, it doesn't work a lot of the times because it's inwardly, it's focused on you. And in order to make a living, like, the world doesn't care about what you want. It cares about what it wants, and it only cares about what you can give to it. So, like, if you want to make money doing something, you have to find kind of the roundabout way of getting there, right? You have to find, what can I give to people that will allow me to do that?
Yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, yeah. So tell us about with your I know one of your products is the Bootstrapper Guild. I think that's the main one, right, that you run. Tell us about some of the products that you have and the services you provide on your site.
Yeah, I'm really all over the place right now. In fact, I'm trying to hone it in a little bit. I get these ideas to do these random little, like, business projects, and I go in many directions.
Entrepreneur's burden, right?
Spaces are one is I wrote a guide on how to grow an audience, because advanced Riskology was pretty successful in growing an audience, so I kind of broke down all the lessons from that. And then there's the Bootstrapper Guild. I've been doing, like, little sort of what I call micro businesses, like, kind of doing the solopreneur thing since I was about 16 years old. So I've, like, run many different, like, very small business projects. And so the Bootstrapper Guild is all about, you know, how to build a small but sustainable income, from like from a side project. And then I have, I'm starting a coffee company. So like there's way over here too. Yeah, but those are kind of the three main things I'm doing. The Bootstrapper Guild, and then this random coffee company that I'm starting.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Like I was just saying, like the entrepreneur's burden, right, all over the place. So many ideas floating around. But that's cool that you're sort of implementing all of them. That's really great. So, like, sorry,
go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying, earlier on in the interview, you mentioned like the grand vision of where you want to go. So what is the grand vision for this project? Like, what are you? I mean, if it's something you can talk about, if it's kind of
it's top secret. No, so that's the thing. Like, it's almost it's kind of it's a morphing thing, right? Like all the time because it's so far away from me. Like, it's hard for me to say exactly what it is because I don't think in concrete terms that far ahead. Like, I kind of more think of like, what feelings do I want to get from running this thing, like, in 5 years? Like, where do I want to, like, what kind of life do I want to have, like, in 5 years, and how, like, what does advanced riskology need to be to do that, and then, like, break that down to, like, what can I do today that kind of maybe moves me in that direction. For me, I just want to, like, I know that I want to do more writing. I want to do more research. Like, so I try to make choices that allow me to do like real science-based research articles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I like travel, like, and I know that I want to incorporate travel more into advanced riskology. So, like, from day one, I knew that I always wanted to incorporate some type of business project that involved like travel. So I don't know what that's going to be, but like, I know that like by going on these adventures and building relationships with people that that run these kinds of tours and mountain guides and like adventure marathons and things, I know that like I'm building the connections I need to kind of make something like that happen once I figure out exactly what it is.
Got it. Yeah, taking it one step at a time, right? Like you said. So that's great. And
yeah.
So finally, like I have much of my audiences right now is in India, and they're sometimes trying to figure out how to create like how to create financial independence. I think I saw on your blog now that you've quit your job and you're doing what you love. Do you think like a blog is that way to do that? What advice do you have? You mentioned some awesome advice in terms of taking risks, but what advice can you leave this audience with, as a final piece of advice in order to generate that financial independence and like start a blog? What do you recommend to create the freedom you have?
Sure. So my answer, like, everybody wants to know how to make money. How to make money with a blog, right? Mm-hmm. And the funny the funny answer is I don't know. I have no idea how to make money with a blog. Because I mean people do make a living with a blog, but it's a difficult task. Like, it's certainly not the easiest way to go about it. But also, if you love it, then you don't mind like putting in the work to make it happen. And in my case, like, so advanced riskology itself, like, doesn't actually make any money. There's nothing I sell directly on advanced riskology that brings, that pays my bills or, writes me a paycheck. Yeah. What I end up doing though is like I use advanced riskology, and the blog is kind of like my home base. Like, it's the place where I put out like all of my, hopefully, most important ideas, and it's where I gather an audience, right? And like from that audience, I learn from them what they want to learn, what's important to them, and then it's basically just sort of a one giant. What do you call that when you get a bunch of people together like in a room to critique something that you have? Oh, a focus group. It's kind of one giant focus group. I'm like, hey guys, I'm thinking about this right now. What do you think about it? And like,
that's cool. Yeah.
If nobody comes and leaves a comment on the article, I'm kind of like, oh, so you don't think very much of that. And if something gets like really popular, like really takes off, I'm like, oh, okay, you guys really care about this. Maybe I can create something else to sell that you guys would like to buy, around this topic.
Yeah. Okay.
That's kind of how I work. Like, so nobody pays me to like write blog posts.
Yeah.
But like writing those articles helps me get a better idea of what the people who are most important to me value and what they'll pay for. And from that knowledge, I use that to create other little projects like the Bootstrapper Guild that then go on to pay the bills.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Makes sense. That's great. Great input. Thank you so much. And just finally, I know we've kind of talked about potentially doing Aconcagua later this year. That's the third of the 7 summits that Tyler was mentioning. I know you've done Elbrus and Kilimanjaro, but I'm just curious. Do you have anything like? What's the next big risk, the next adventure you have in mind, either before that or is there something? What's the next step?
Right now, launching my coffee company, Brew Pony, feels pretty scary.
Yeah.
But and that's coming up in just a few days. So there's that, and then I think the next big one will probably be that trip. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Hope to do that with you. That'd be awesome. So yeah, one thing I just want to share with everybody that listening. Like, I love that you're still launching new things, and you were like it's still scary. Like you said, you don't ever conquer fear, and that's just been like really invaluable input. So thank you so much for being on the show. It's been really awesome. Your insight has just been pure gold. I can't thank you enough for being on here. I look forward to kind of staying in touch, hopefully doing some trips with you in the near future, and bringing you on again down the road once we've done 7 summits, right? So
yeah, it's my pleasure, man. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun. This was a good interview.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure. I got so much valuable insight. Thanks, Tyler. I look forward to staying in touch and talking with you soon again.
Yeah, you bet.
Have a good one.
Bye.
I hope you all enjoyed that awesome interview. I apologize for the few technical glitches that we experienced there. Working on it, making sure that doesn't happen again so you can have a really pleasant viewing experience. But regardless of that, I really hope you enjoyed and took from the insights that Tyler had his really incredible strategies on how to embrace your fear and move forward despite them, because courage is not the absence of fear. It's what you do despite it. And he had really good tips on how to do that. So I recommend you go check out his blog, sign up here to get his 5 risks that made history. It'll blow your mind, and you'll also get regular updates as when he posts updates about his adventures and any insights he gets about better living through uncertainty. And again, if you have any questions for Tyler or myself, please post them in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. And definitely sign up in the box below so you can continue to get updates as we keep posting interviews and keep getting more and more tools on how to manifest success and live a life filled with passion, joy, enthusiasm, fulfillment, and just create optimal experiences in your life. So be sure to sign up below because I'm really excited about the next interview we got coming up in 2 weeks for you. So look forward to that, and I will see you next time.